Greetings. Allow me to first introduce myself. I am Shakeel Atchia from the Science Education Department of the Mauritius Institute of Education, which is the only tertiary education institution in the country having the mandate of teacher education, curriculum development, and educational research. I am also a member of the Human Welfare League, which is an Islamic association based in Mauritius with a social endeavor. The title of my presentation is Investigating the Correlation Between Religion and Key Human Values Among Educational Stakeholders in Mauritius. So let's start with the introduction. In fact, it is undeniable that human values are key in shaping the youth into responsible citizens, first, capable of making a positive difference in the lives of others. Second, capable of projecting himself as a model to others. And third, capable of facing global, national, and personal challenges. In fact, according to Cornero et al. 2021, religion plays an important role in the development of such human values, and eventually, and moral and ideal behavior. It is in this perspective that this study has been developed to investigate the correlation between religion and key human values among educational stakeholders in Mauritius. It is important to have an overview of the literature review to situate the context of this study. Analysis of the literature revealed that several studies have been done in this field to correlate religion and human values. For instance, Cornero et al. In 2021 studied human values and religion using evidence from the European Social Survey. Ives and Kidwell in 2019 studied religion and social values. In fact, there are several such research and studies which have been done. However, detailed analysis of the scholarship revealed that, first, most of the studies are limited to very few human values. Second, there is no published article showcasing the correlation of religion to human values in the Mauritian context. Third, an Islamic perspective has not yet been adopted in analyzing the correlations. And fourth, most of the available publications are limited to simple statistical analysis. So how is this study different? This study has three main research questions. The first one, is there any significant correlation between religion and key human values in Mauritius? Second, is there a significant difference in key human values between religious groups in Mauritius? Referring to religious groups, we have mainly Hindus, Christians, and Muslim communities in Mauritius. Third, what are the levels of likelihood of the key human values in the Muslim community of Mauritius? So let's explore the methodology used. In fact, the Mauritius specific data from AEMS Mapping the Terrains project was used to investigate the correlation between religion and a broad set of human values, namely forgiveness, individualistic orientation, collectivistic orientation, self-efficacy, problem-solving, meaning-making, sense of belongingness, religiosity and spirituality, hope, life satisfaction, gratitude, emotion, empathy, and self-regulation. Actually, a purely quantitative methodology was used, where data from AEMS Mapping the Terrains project were analyzed using SPSS and AMOS software to first have an overview of the descriptive analysis to showcase the association between the main religious beliefs in Mauritius and the key human values. And second part of the research work is about the designing and development of a structural equation model, that is the SEM, which showcases the existing correlation between religion and the set of human values. With this, let's move to the next part, which is the findings. Let's start with the distribution of respondents. 971 participants, representative of the different educational stakeholders in Mauritius, participated in this survey. The stakeholders included school students, university students, school teachers, and university instructors. In fact, the sample was also representative in terms of gender, age group, educational level, and religion, to include the different groups, religious groups, that is Muslims, Christians, Hindus, and others. Others represent the less populated religions in Mauritius, including Jewish, Buddhist, and atheist. Actually, more details of the distribution of the Mauritian respondent in the AEMS Mapping the Terrain survey is available in the raw data. However, you can have an analysis of the respondent in an upcoming paper from Bell, Hossein Ali, and Atchia. Let's move to the structural equation model produced using AEMS software. This model shows higher correlation between religion and human values such as, first one, collectivistic orientation in terms of cooperation, relationship, family relationship, parent-children relationship, respect of group decisions, and team spirit. The second human value, which is highly correlated with religion in Mauritius, is empathy in relation to different perspectives, empathy towards other sides, empathy in relation to upset, criticism, waste, and difficulties. Third, religion has been correlated to spirituality in terms of prayer, belief in God, respect of other religious groups, and self-religiosity. Fourth, religion has been correlated with life satisfaction in relation to life ideals, life excellence, satisfaction of important things in life, and change. The fifth human values correlated with religion in Mauritius is hope in relation to anxiety, fulfillment, hopefulness, life quality, and difficulties. Sixth one is problem solving, including identification of options, collection of data, expression of ideas, planning of actions, finding solutions, among others. Last but not least, religion has been correlated with the human value self-regulation in Mauritius in terms of goal plans, resolution, progress, difficulties, willpower, distractions, decision-making, change, and focus. Further analysis of the existing correlation within groups, as shown in this table, revealed that there is significant differences between the means of Muslims, Christians, Hindus, and others in relation to key human values such as collectivistic orientation, problem solving, meaning making, spirituality, hope, and life satisfaction. This table is a very important one, as it shows the mean values and standard deviation related to religion. Analysis of the table revealed that all mean values are greater than 2, indicating that respondents of all religions in Mauritius have high likelihood for all the construct, that is human values. However, when comparing the means, it was observed that the Muslim community of Mauritius have greater likelihood and are more agreeable towards most of the values and competencies as compared to the other communities. For instance, greater mean values are noted for Muslim community for most values. In fact, 10 out of 15, including collective orientation, mean-making, sense of belonging, spirituality, teacher self-efficacy, hope, gratitude, emotion regulation, empathy, and self-regulation. However, it is noted that Christians show higher level of forgiveness and life satisfaction as compared to others. And Hindus show higher level of individualistic orientation, self-efficacy, and problem solving as compared to others. This brings us to the conclusion. In fact, the output of this study, which mapped the different human values to the main religious beliefs present in the Mauritian community, represent important baseline data that inform policymakers and other educational stakeholders on the way forward to further the development of human values among our students. Second, the finding revealed that Muslim community in Mauritius have greater likelihood and are more agreeable towards most of the values, 10 out of 15, excluding forgiveness, life satisfaction, individualistic orientation, self-efficacy, and problem solving. Therefore, those values should be the target of training in the future. The article, which is going to be published after this presentation, provides a set of recommendations that inform policymakers and other educational specialists on the way forward to enhance the development of human values among the educational population. This will provide healthy, values-based multicultural and multi-ethnic relationships between the different ethnic groups of Mauritius. With this, thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome everybody. My name is Khurram Shahzad and I'm currently serving as professor in the area of human resource management and organizational behavior in School of Leadership of Riphah International University. Apart from that, I'm also looking after the Dean Office of the Faculty of Management Sciences, and today I'm feeling very privileged and honored to present my work on this auspicious forum. I hope and pray that all of you are well and staying safe. So starting with my presentation, I'll first and foremost would like to share the topic of my work, that is impact of sense of belonging on forgiveness and gratitude among Muslim students, with the mediating role of collectivism and moderating mechanism of religiosity. So to start with, I'll first present the table of contents. I'll share some background, then research questions. Then we'll move on to the literature review, the research model, and the hypothesis of my study. We'll share the details of some method that I have followed, then the findings of the study, then the discussion of these findings and their theoretical implications. And in then I will conclude the session with the recommendations and of conclusion derived from this study. So to start with, sense of belonging is actually a tiltation amongst an individual that actually helps people to build and sustain strong relationships. And social relationships are extremely important for healthy development of every individual. They're also important for students as well, as highlighted by the Maslow in 1943. Educational researchers have already investigated that how sense of belonging at school affects students in multifaceted ways. According to Richmond and Leary, the moral values of forgiveness and gratitude can be different ways of maintaining these social ties, and these social ties are extremely important for the mental health and well-being. Now, whether sense of belongingness amongst someone can actually help them in exhibiting better forgiveness and gratitude needs attention, and not much evidence is available about it, especially in the context of students in the different schools and colleges in Muslim societies. Continuing it, the development of moral values such as student sense of belonging is also related to their religiosity and spirituality level. So we also expect that the relationship between sense of belonging, religious attitude, and cultural orientation of collectivism is an important discussion and has not been explored previously. So given all above, it is important that the nexus of these constructs among Muslim students in particular may please be explored for the better and holistic development of students in different academic institutions. So given these research gaps on in this line of thought, we have developed following 3 research questions for this study. That is, how does sense of belonging impact forgiveness and gratitude level among Muslim students? Does collectivism mediate the relationship of the sense of belonging and forgiveness and gratitude among Muslim students? And does religiosity level of the students moderate the effect of their sense of belonging on their connectiveness levels. So in order to answer these research questions, we reviewed the relevant literature, which due to time constraint, I'm not going into more details, but I'll just share that we have used the social interdependence model and the need to belong theory to predict and to expect that the sense of belongingness may actually help people to be more forgiving and show higher order of the gratitude. Also, the collectivists, individuals, interpret themselves as socially interested and give more emphasis on the norms of collective well-being and relationships. So accordingly, in collectivist societies, people are expected to be more forgiving and showing more gratitude. Religious orientation also promotes collective values, and we expect individuals with higher religious orientation to have or to experience a stronger relationship in the form of their sense of belongingness and collectivist values. So based on these literature guidelines, we have formulated the following 8 hypotheses. That I will explain with the help of diagram in the next slide. So given this diagram, it clearly shows that we hypothesize that sense of belonging will have a significant positive effect on forgiveness and both the gratitude. We also expected that the collectivism level amongst the students will mediate these both relationships. Additionally, we expected that religious orientation or religiosity in the behaviors of students will actually amplify the effect of their sense of belongingness on their level of collectiveness. So all in all, we formulated 8 hypotheses, 2 of the direct effects, then 1 of the IV to mediator, then mediator to DVs, then the mediation hypothesis and the moderation hypothesis. So we use the quantitative research design based on the philosophy of positivism to answer these hypotheses. Our study design is causal. The respondents selected were the secondary and higher school or higher education students from the 15 Muslim countries. This data was collected through a quantitative study of 219 mapping the territory by International Institute of Islamic Thought, and we collected data, used this data set, and the final sample size that qualified our sampling frame is 13,492 students. These are the details of the scales that were used to measure these variables. The countrywide distribution of the respondents is that highest number of respondents belong from the India, the next highest number of the respondents from the Bosnia, and the third highest number of the respondents is from the Bangladesh. And the lowest number of participants in this study are from USA and Tataristan. So this table actually shows the demographic details of the respondent in the terms of their gender, in the terms of nature of their institutions like public and private, and their level, like whether they were school students or university students. Of course, I will not go into the details of all the statistics, but in a nutshell, actually school students were dominant in our sample as comparison to university students. In the terms of public and private, there was almost equal composition, while female students were dominant in our sample. We conducted one-way ANOVA to find that whether there are any differences in the dependent variable of forgiveness and gratitude given the demographic traits of our respondents, which are country, school type, gender, age, grade, and degree, language, and ethnicity. We did this analysis to find the control variables that actually may inflate the effect of our independent variables in our final analysis. So the results are given over here, and we expected that on the basis of country, school type, gender, age, grade, degree, language, and ethnicity, there were variations in these dependent variables, and accordingly we controlled them in regression analysis. This table shows the correlation coefficients, and all the study variables are positively correlated with each other. So next, to decide about our hypothesis, we use smart PLS software and run the measurement and structural model. This is the details of structural model, and its results are presented in this particular table. And these results clearly show from the p-values that all the 7 hypotheses for the direct effects and for the mediating effects were supported. All the beta coefficients are positive and in expected direction as per our hypothesis. So 7 hypotheses were supported. Then we ran the moderation analysis using the smart PLS, and the interaction term actually is significant, which is supporting our hypothesis. Lastly, discussion of our findings. we expect, based on the support for our hypothesis, that those who have a higher sense of belonging will show higher level of forgiveness and gratitude in social relationships. So college students who can settle for the good and preserve with the bad are likely to develop a stronger sense of gratitude in their lives. We also expected that it increases the collectivist level amongst the students, and our findings supported this. Collectivism that is actually generated amongst the students as a result of their sense of belonging also directly predicts and increases the forgiveness and gratitude level amongst the students. So people who have collectivist worldview experience increased level of forgiveness and gratitude towards their offenders and attribute more generous causal and responsibility attributions to their offenders. In the context of mediating variable, we found support that these relationships are mediated through the level of collectivism. Well, we didn't find support as expected with regard to our final hypothesis, but this may be due to the reason that our sample consisted of only Muslim students and no markable differences were found were there in the religiosity level of all Muslim students. So that is why no moderating role was found. So we based on these findings that a key component of increasing student sense of belonging in school is the promotion of strong student-teacher relationships. A supportive relationship with one or more teachers is the strongest predictor of school belonging for an individual. Forgiveness education should be taught and modeled even more in high school and college curricula because it doesn't continue on intuitively. So the study has its limitation, and in conclusion, we will say that sense of belonging plays a positive role in shaping the values of forgiveness and gratitude. The higher the need of belonging and collectivism, the higher individuals' forgiveness and gratitude in their interpersonal relationships. So with this, I will conclude my work. Thank you so much. If you have any questions and queries, I'll be very happy to answer it. You can write me on this email ID. I'll be happy to reply via text or even audio. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Suhara. Welcome to my presentation. We are a team of 3 members, Hanan PT, Mohamed, Asheef TK, and Suhara RH. The title of the presentation is Performing Religion, Faith and Values by a Politically Contested Minority, Facilitation of Empathy and Forgiveness among Muslim Students and Teachers in India. This is the author details. Mohamed Asheef is doing his master's in psychology from Aligarh Muslim University, India. And I am Suhara RH. I've just completed PhD in social work from Jamia, Millia, Islamia, New Delhi, India. Hanan has completed her master's in statistics from Farouk College, Calicut, India. Coming to the introduction, India is home for roughly 170 million Muslims, which is 14% of India's 1.3 billion population. The current government, which came into power in the year 2014 and got re-elected in the year 2019, is evidently antagonistic towards Muslims. The government has introduced new policies that have the outcome of eviction of Muslims from their land. In the year 2019, the world has witnessed the government introducing a new act, which is called Citizenship Amendment Act, and the whole nation was protesting against it because of the hidden agenda of evicting Muslims from their motherland based on the citizenship, which also questions the nationality and patriotism of Indian Muslims on a daily basis. This is a glimpse of the nature of headlines that pop up in the media in India. Muslims are being thrashed by the police for eating meat and, making the life difficult every day for Muslims. Coming to the literature review, the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and the subsequent demolition of the Babri Masjid made the Muslims in India insecure. Muslims were portrayed as a treacherous presence for the nation's integrity. Cities bearing Islamic names are being renamed. History textbooks are being rewritten to legitimize Hindu nationalist ideology. Derogatory terms and stigmatizing identities like Pakistanis, traitors, and terrorists were used freely and openly and imposed on Muslims. If the first Indian nationalism was civic, territorial, plural, and inclusive, the current day Indian nationalism is only about division of its citizens on the basis of religion. And it is in this backdrop the current study is located, where we are trying to understand how do young Muslims position themselves in the chaotic situation, and how there is no retaliation, no major retaliation from the Muslims against the government. The research questions are: do teachers and Muslim students differ in their religiosity and moral reasoning? The idea behind choosing teachers and Muslims as two groups of the study is we are trying to understand it from the generational perspective. The Muslim students are the current age, the youngest generation, which is in interaction with the news media and the day to day atrocities against the Muslims. And one generation above them is the teachers, and these two generations are coming in contact through educational institutions. And understanding the differences in their religiosity, moral reasoning, and value beliefs can give an idea of how these atrocities or the current political scenario is having an impact on the students, and whether this has forced them to move away from their religion or stick closer to their religion. The second research question is there any difference in value beliefs, empathy, and forgiveness across developmental stages among Muslim students? Is there any connectedness between religiosity and perceived sense of belongingness in Muslim youth? Methods: the data was drawn from Advancing Education in Muslim Societies Mapping the Terrain study. We have used 2018-19 wave. We have selected the data pertaining to India and only about the Muslim school students, university students, and teachers. The study has used self-administered questionnaire composed of a 5-point Likert scale. We have only used scales of religiosity, spirituality, empathy, forgiveness, moral reasoning, and sense of belonging. We have used t-test, ANOVA, and structural equation modeling for analysis. The statistics for SPSS and SPSS AMOS we have used. Coming to the findings, religiosity in teachers and students, we have found out that overall there is no significant difference in the religiosity among students and teachers. We have also used certain individual items as these were relevant to the theme of the study. How important is it for you to belong to a religious group? How important is it for you to belong to a place of worship? How important is volunteering for you based on your religious belief? For these individual items, students responded more positively than teachers. About moral reasoning was found to have significant difference between teachers and students. Teachers scored higher in moral reasoning. And individual questions relevant to the study: justice is the most important requirement for a society. It can never be right to kill a human being, whether or not someone violated standards of purity and decency. Teachers scored higher than the students. Empathy in teachers and students. Empathy levels among university students and school students differ significantly, where school students scored higher. Empathy among teachers and students also differ significantly, where teachers scored higher. And the individual items we have analyzed, and we found out that these are the items where school students scored greater. I believe there are two sides to every question, and try to look at them both. I enjoy making other people feel better. I get a strong urge to help when I see someone who is upset, etc. Forgiveness in teachers and students. School and university students do not differ in forgiveness. Students differ in forgiveness subgroup decisions. The subgroup called decisions significantly compared to the teachers. Forgiveness level of teachers and students differ significantly, where we found that teachers scored higher in forgiveness. Individual questions we tested were: I derive my ability to forgive for my religious spiritual values. Even if someone wrongs me, it would be wrong to seek revenge. Over time, a person's forgiveness of another will usually come about by itself. The teachers scored higher. Connectedness between religiosity and sense of belongingness was analyzed using structural equation modeling. The three subscales were analyzed independently: relatedness, schooling, and social support. And we found that religiosity has positive impact on all the subscales of sense of belongingness. Relatedness, schooling, and social support had good model fit as the p values were within the threshold level. It was found that only 13% of the total variation in relatedness is explained by religiosity, and only 15% of the total variation in schooling is explained by religiosity, and 15% of the total variation in the subscale social support is explained by religiosity. This is the path diagram of connectedness between religiosity and sense of belongingness in SEM model. The first diagram is religiosity and social support, second is religiosity and schooling, and third is religiosity and relatedness. Coming to the discussion, Muslim students and teachers maintained their affinity for religion despite the contentious political context. This is what the findings revealed. It could be explained by the social identity theory, where individuals identify themselves in relation to the social group they identify with, and there is a tendency to stay close to the group identity when there is threat to the identity they project, which could be explained with the current political circumstances in India. And the greater level of moral reasoning, empathy, and forgiveness in teachers can also tell us about the hopeful future where there is a possibility for value transmission from teachers to students in educational institutions, as these institutions have a strong stake in promoting cross religious, cross racial, and cross developmental stage interactions. And this also tells about religion has having indelible influence on the youth, as it could be the values they carry from the formative years into early adulthood that helps them navigate a social life. However, we should also be cautious about the generalization of the findings to the whole of Muslim student population in India, as it is not a representative sample. However, our study has found agreement with other studies conducted with Muslim communities and Muslim students in particular. Kaur in 2021 has observed Muslim communities in the current day political scenario have the desire for education, development, and a wish to be part of the idea of the nation on their own terms, speaking to their own religion. Studies have also established positive, significant relationship between religious commitment, levels of happiness, self-esteem, and positive attitudes in Muslim students. These findings emphasize the basic tenets of Indian democracy, where secularism allows its citizens the right to practice and profess their religion, and Muslim students are not compromising on their religiosity or religious value beliefs uh, due to the political context. Thank you.
Our research paper is titled Students' Sense of Belonging to School and Their Perceptions of Teachers, a Comparative Study, a paper written by Imen Hentati and I, Donia Smaali Bouhila, from the Faculty of Economics and Management, University of Tunis Manar. The outline of our presentation is as follows. After a brief introduction discussing the importance of the topic, we will highlight the objective of the study. Then we will present the research questions. After that, we will review briefly some literature. Following that, we will present our data and the methodology used. And we will finish with the findings and conclusions. A sense of belonging is defined as feeling accepted and liked by the rest of the group, feeling connected to others, and feeling like a member of a community. In general, teenagers at school desire strong social ties and value acceptance, care, and support from others. But why is it important for students to feel a sense of belonging at school? A sense of belonging gives students feelings of security, identity, and community, which in turn support academic, psychological, and social development. A wide array of academic and social outcomes have been associated with sense of belonging. Students' sense of belonging to school is an important research topic because when students feel they are part of a school community, they are more likely to perform better academically, be more motivated to learn, and have higher self-esteem. In addition, they are less likely to drop out and they are less likely to engage in risky and antisocial behavior. Furthermore, researchers showed that the lack of sense of belonging at school is a predictor of depression among adolescents. So the study examines differences between countries in the strength of students' sense of belonging at school and how sense of belonging is associated with students' type of school, gender, and religion. Additionally, the study looks at how students' perception of teachers differs among students in different countries. Using the survey data collected by IIIT for Advancing Education in Muslim Societies in 2019-2020, we seek to answer the following research questions. First, how does the student's sense of belonging differ among the countries in the sample? Does the sense of belonging differ among students in public schools versus private schools? Is there a gender difference of the sense of belonging? Does the sense of belonging differ between Muslim students and non-Muslim students? And finally, does the student's perception of teachers differ by country? In order to answer these different questions, we rely, as we have previously mentioned, on the survey data collected by IIIT for Advancing Education in Muslim Societies in 2019-2020. Our sample is composed of 15 countries from Africa, Asia, Europe. USA is also included in the sample. We are primarily interested in school students under the age of 18 in the 15 countries participating in the survey. According to the survey, these students are in grade 8 or higher, which means they are in either pre-secondary or secondary school. The reason for using this age group is that the family is the center of students' social and emotional world when they are young. However, as they enter the adolescent stage between the ages of 10 and 19, they strive to maintain genuine and long-lasting interpersonal relationships farther afield frequently in school. To know how the student's sense of belonging varies across countries, students, and schools, we refer to the 18 items related to the sense of belonging. The item response theory model is used to construct a sense of belonging index by country. Very briefly, we will present some descriptive statistics of the data used. The largest sample is associated to India, with 1,879 students under the age of 18, while the smallest sample comes from the USA with 226 students. The sample has slightly more female than male survey respondents. As for school type, most surveyed students come from public schools. However, in some countries, the surveyed students come from solely public schools. This is the case of Jordan, Tajikistan, and Malaysia, or solely from private school, which is the case of Kyrgyzstan and USA. The survey focuses more on Muslim students. Before constructing the index, we conducted a series of tests. We first determined the Cronbach's alpha, which is a measure of internal consistency. That's how closely related a set of items are as a group. It's considered to be a measure of scale reliability. In this case, the scale reliability coefficient is 0.8, indicating good reliability. We also conducted the test of dimensionality using factor analysis. The results show that indeed the items are measuring one latent variable or dimension. Let's move now to the results. The highest sense of belonging is observed in Tajikistan. The lowest sense of belonging is observed in Tanzania, Bangladesh, Kenya, India, and Sudan. The next slide shows that in these same countries, girls have lower sense of belonging than boys. With the exception of Tartustan and across the other participating countries, girls have lower sense of belonging than boys. In regard to the school type, the results are mixed across the countries. Finally, across all the countries, the non-Muslim students exhibit higher sense of belonging than Muslims. As for the students-teacher perceptions, we analyzed one item. When students were asked whether the teachers are not interested in people like them, most students across the participating countries responded that this is not true. However, boys report lower teachers' interest in them. To sum up, the results have shown varying levels of sense of belonging among the countries. Countries with low income to lower middle income have very low sense of belonging among their students. The index in this case is negative. We have not commented on the results of USA as the sample surveyed was not randomly selected. Finally, this work is still on progress. Thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Zishan Noor. I'm a research manager for Muslim Philanthropy Initiative at Lily Family School of Philanthropy. And I'm thankful to Dr. Ilham Nasir and Alex for their time and effort and for giving me this opportunity to present my research. So as you can read the title, Decoding Relationship Between Collectivistic and Individualistic Orientations with Positive Psychology, Religiosity, and Socioeconomic Demographics Among Muslims, a survey-based global study. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to draw a relationship. I'm basically trying to see if there is a relationship between the collectivistic or individualistic orientation of a person, mainly Muslims, and if they have a correlation with positive psychology, some factors of positive psychology, religiosity, and socioeconomic demographics. And I'm calling it among Muslims because I will be using the Muslim sample population. I will be explaining that later. So before I move on, I would try to give a quick background, an overview of Muslims and Islam. So Islam is the second largest religion in the world besides Christianity. And the total estimated Muslim population in the world is around 1.6 to 1.5 billion. And Islam happens to be the fastest growing religion. And with this trend, so it is expected that Islam will take over as the first most populous religion on this planet in hopefully in the next 20-30 years, like by 2050. There are two major Islamic denominations. So majorly it's Sunni Islam, 85 to 90%, and Shia Islam, 10 to 15%. And there are other school of thoughts and within these two denominations and other Muslims that identify with either Sunni Islam or Shia Islam or not. And with the combined Muslim population all over the world, Muslim make up a majority of population in 49 countries. And if you can see in the right side, so the most populous countries, top four most popular countries happens to be in Asia, primarily South Asia, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. So basically, what is collectivistic in orientation and what is individualistic orientation? As apparent from these terms, that collective means that more like teamwork, individualistic is more like personal, like somebody doing things on their own. But just to clarify that we should not make an assumption that collective orientation is good or individualistic orientation is not good, or vice versa, because sometimes individualism in some scenarios is better and sometimes teamwork or collectivism is better. So positive fire, there are several factors that that are considered as positive psychology, but I'm taking into consideration these three major factors, which is empathy, gratitude, and forgiveness. So empathy is simply basically feeling somebody else's pain and like taking actions according, making an effort in order to relieve the pain of the other person in a way. Gratitude is basically the feeling of thankfulness and being thankful to people, being thankful to nature, being thankful to God for anything positive happening, or even if it is not something positive is not happening. Forgiveness simply is basically it's an act, it's a personal act of kindness that you let go of, you forgive somebody when you believe or when you think that you are on the right side of the spectrum, but you just let it go. So that is forgiveness. And so past research shows that these three psychology factors are interrelated: empathy, gratitude, and forgiveness. That makes perfect sense. Religiosity is basically that somebody identify with a religion, any religion, Islam, Christianity, or let's say Hinduism. And the level of religiosity is usually measured by the level of practice and belief. So somebody is more practicing, more with somebody with a stronger belief, we would consider that, okay, the person has a higher level of religiosity, and vice versa. And religiosity is basically very much connected with positive psychology and a lot of other factors. So basically what I'm trying to do is, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm trying to draw a relationship, and I want to basically not draw, like I want to see if there is a relationship between collective, individualistic, collective or individualistic orientations, and how does it impact on their positive psychology. So to answer, so I have 4 major research questions, and to answer these research questions, we have to come up with assumptions, which is basically called hypothesis building. So the first question, you can see individualistic and collective orientation and its impact on positive psychology. So how does empathy, gratitude, and forgiveness correlate with collective or individualistic orientation? Second question is that how does religiosity influence individualistic and collective orientations and positive psychology? So basically, religiosity becomes a variable, and it correlates with personal orientations, and it correlates with empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude. The third question is that what is the role of socioeconomic demographics in defining a person's individualistic or collective orientation and their positive psychology in terms of empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude. The fourth and last question is basically that so I was interested in something trying to see that if Muslim majority countries, there are Muslim majority countries and there are Muslim minority countries in the sample, that if their orientation or if their positive psychology differ based on their geographic location. So for example, if I belong to Indonesia, do I have same level, same behavior of orientation? And if I'm part of, let's say, a United States, which is just 1.1 Muslim US American Muslim population. So do I differ in terms of personal orientation and my level of positives like empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude? So in this scenario, the terms independent variable becomes collective and individualistic orientation. Dependent variables become empathy, gratitude, and forgiveness. Socioeconomic demographics, I'm considering age, education, and gender. And geographic location, I have divided the countries into 2 subsets: Muslim majority countries and Muslim minority countries. And then religiosity, spirituality. So the data for this study comes from a survey-based study from which is called Advancing Education in Muslim Societies, mapping the terrain 2019-2020 study. This study and the data is publicly available on this link. And there are very well-defined scales. And yeah, moving on forward. So this becomes my model that I'm not only trying to draw relationships between the variables, but I'm also trying to draw relationships in between independent variables. So collective individualistic orientation, obviously, all 4 sets of these independent variables, but at the same time, I'm trying to see that how does socio-economic demographics, how do they impact in terms of positive psychology, and what is the role of spirituality in socioeconomic demographics and positive psychology, and vice versa. So I have conducted 3 different sets of statistical analyses, multivariate regression analysis, ANOVA, and independent t-test. So independent t-tests were needed for mainly geographic location and gender, and ANOVA was mainly needed for age and education. And rest all is basically regression analysis. So I will not spend time on this explaining the actual study because of the sake of time. So there were 15 countries, 7 and 8 like minority and majority countries. The biggest subset of population was Muslim population, Muslim respondents, which is 1580. That is my 100% sample size. So I will not go into details about the tables and but just to give you a glimpse of the graph outputs, regression outputs, and the scatter plots. This is the regression with empathy. This is the regression with gratitude and forgiveness. This is the regression for religiosity while considering it as an independent variable. And these are some t-test and ANOVA results while considering the relations between them, and then collective and with the dependent variables, collective and individualistic orientations. So I will jump onto the findings and I will try to explain it in the simplest possible words. So people with individualistic orientation are more empathetic and more grateful. However, their level of gratitude is not really defined by this personality orientation. In terms of religiosity, it is significantly affiliated, it's significantly associated with collective individualistic orientation, but you cannot really make a distinction that, okay, more religious people are more collective or more or less religious are less individualistic or vice versa. So, and then more religious people were found to be more empathetic and grateful, which is obviously that makes sense. This is what religion and Islam teaches. And however, the level of religiosity does not really predict the outcome of forgiveness, the variable of forgiveness. Socioeconomic demographics, older people are more individualistic, significantly more empathetic and grateful, and moderately forgiving compared to younger people. Gender, women are comparatively more collective oriented compared to their male counterparts, and they are more empathetic and grateful, while men tend to be more forgiving. This is something interesting, and maybe a full-fledged research in terms of gender can be carried out in the future. Education level, so lower education level people are more empathetic, forgiving, and grateful, and at the same time they are more individualistic in terms of personality. So based on these findings, so nearly all these hypotheses are supported, besides hypothesis H4B and hypothesis H8A, which is supported but partially. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation and would be happy to discuss more after the presentation. And this is my email address. Please feel free to reach out, and I would be happy to share my findings with you in detail and hold a conversation. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to Alex, who's been mentoring and working with these researchers in the past year or so, maybe?
A few months.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone. Great. We'll open the floor for questions. First from in person, and then if they're already online, and then I, of course, there are some questions for everyone as well. Any questions in the room?
Can you give a little bit background, like about what you've done?
Sure. Yeah, so as you might have noticed, all of these presentations were related to the AEMS Mapping the Terrain survey. And in the summer, we put out a call for applications to try to identify researchers who are interested in analyzing that data in new ways. So we were lucky and got a lot of great applicants, and you heard from some of them today. You'll hear from some more in the second panel. And we basically spent the last few months meeting periodically, trying to sharpen the analysis, identify research questions that are relevant, and as you saw, both focused and targeted in specific contexts, and also looking more broadly, but interested in thinking about these different values and how they impact each other. So it's been great working with this group, and yeah, congratulations everyone. I thought the presentations went great. We have a question over here.
I guess I have questions, one for the researcher from Mauritius and one for India. For Mauritius, I was wondering, like, you found differences in the values between the three major religious groups, and I was wondering which you would have predicted or which you expected and which surprised you, and why you think you have those elevated between the religious groups. And with India, I guess you were optimistic, like you presented that like teachers that higher of these values than students, and at least you're optimistic that it could be transmitted from teachers to students. But I don't know if there's any way you could think of whether is the difference by age or is it generational? So is like, would you expect the teachers to also be lower and then come higher later, or could it be that in these more troubling political times, the students have acquired more negative values, and that is a unique distinction, and perhaps it's more long lasting because of the political situation.
Thank you. So hopefully you did hear that. And I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but please put on your video and share with the audience.
Hi, Alex. I think we have we got a question. Could you please repeat the question, because I didn't understand the question?
Sure. So the question was, you ended your presentation on a positive note, saying that there's maybe reason for optimism that teachers are going to pass these values to their students. And the question was, do you think the differences that you saw between teachers and students was more a function of age, so this is a matter of maturity in developing these values over your lifetime, or a generational difference that maybe the young people that might have these more negative or less empathetic values are having it as a result of their political situation that you detailed quite extensively, and they're going to carry that through with their life?
Okay, so the question is like, how do we see the difference in the two groups in empathy and forgiveness in the teachers and the students, isn't it?
Yes, and whether it's the differences are just related to growing up and age, and we might expect this in any situation, or if it's a function of like the political context and generational effects.
Okay. Just a second, I'll take a minute to think about it and then I'll return.
Yeah, thank you. It's a difficult question. In the meantime, Dr. Atchia, are you available to answer the question about Mauritius?
Yes, I'm here, but I haven't been able to listen to the question properly. So I would be grateful if you may repeat the question. Thank you.
Sure. So the question was, and it was related to one that I was going to ask, is if you could give a little more context of the religious situation in Mauritius, if any of you mentioned there are these three rather equally sized groups, but basically if the differences you saw between them were expected or surprising, given Mauritius' unique context.
Okay, thank you. I got the question. Yeah, in fact, in Mauritius, we have different type of religion. The first one, we have a larger group of Hindus, and then we have the Christian followed by the Muslim group. But as expected, there is a very important factor about how religion is related to values in Mauritius. Though we have the different groups of different religions in Mauritius, being a multicultural country, we have been growing together, working together. We are representing a family in Mauritius. So when I am, for example, here analyzing the data, I am not analyzing it in terms of the different impacts of the different religions in relation to values. I have taken it as a whole in terms of religion and how it is related to the different values that we have in the mapping of the terrain. This is the first one. And second, if we go into the detail about the different religions that we have in Mauritius, there are many common values, and these values are often correlated together, brought together during the upbringing that we have in Mauritius when we develop together into adult. So this is why it is more important to have data we're analyzing the effect of religion independent of the specific religion to the values. This is the first one. And second, perhaps it is also important for me to highlight the fact that when I'm referring to the different type of religion, due to the fact that most of the respondents were from the Muslim community, so I cannot, for example, analyze the different religion in relation to the values. It will not be something which is reliable. So this is why I group together everything into religion and then correlate it with the different values. Thank you very much.
Can I answer now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so while trying to understand the difference in empathy and forgiveness among school students and teachers, and why we are hoping that this is a generational difference and it can have positive impact on children, is also the context or the value system which is existing in India, wherein teachers and parents are seen as the most important people children model. And we, like in the recent examples, we have also understood that even when university spaces, the young students are they take decisions impulsively in response to the policy decisions taken by the government. Whereas the teachers are key people, like instrumental in calming down the students and making them understand the tradition, the secularistic tradition the country holds to. And then the students' agitations are moderated by the wisdom or the experiences shared by the teachers. So it is in this context that we see that these results could be the same as we also experience in our day-to-day life, because we all are part of a educational system wherein in 2019 there was a countrywide outbreak of a kind of agitation against the government regarding the CAA NRC protest you might have heard about, which got global attention, which was the government was moving against the Muslims in the country based on their citizenship status, like only those who could prove their citizenship for these many years could only stay in India. So that kind of a thing. And this universities in the capital of India, which is New Delhi, was playing a key important role in starting this agitation. And the stand taken by the teachers in these institutions also were showing hopeful that they were negotiating with the student organizations and other people that India have never chosen the path of violence to tackle any of the issues. Non-violence had been the major tool which was shown by the father of the nation. And that is how I see that the value transmission is getting reflected in all the things that is happening in India. So I think that might answer the question.
Thank you.
Are we taking still?
Yes, still taking questions from the room, and there's some online as well.
So can I ask anyone? So thank you so much. This is Ilham. Thank you so much for the interesting presentations and the diversity of the topics and the data you used. Since you all know, and I don't know if you noticed that we had two data sets, one 2018-2019 and one in 2019-2020. And some use the recent one and some use the one from 2018. My question is to the team from professor from Pakistan. As you know, and maybe it's for everyone here, as you know, I learned from my statistician that when you have a large data set, that it's really nothing unusual about finding significant levels. So like when the data is large and you have many different groups, it's anticipated that there will be significant differences. And what we need to look for at this point when this happens is the size of the difference. Did you have a chance to take a second look or take the next step of making meaning regarding the size of the differences more than just the significant levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe this question pertains to me.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for pointing this out. Actually, I have already submitted the complete version of my manuscript to Alex, and I have already received the similar sort of feedback from him as well. So I'm already into the process of looking into the significance levels. Yes, because given that the sample size that we have actually relied on for our analysis is something like 13,000 onwards. So the significance level I have rechecked are the same. They are actually 99.99% of the significance levels that we actually retrieve for most of the values. I have actually fetched some of the analysis files showing the significance of these coefficients. But one other observation that actually I'm still to look into that whether are there any reverse coded items involved that required to be reversed before the analysis that we may have missed or is it fine the way we have done the analysis. So till time I've not verified the reverse coded item thing, but the significance levels are the same. I have rerun the analysis as well just to reconfirm it, and they are the same that we got in the initial analysis. But once I'll be rechecking or rereading all the items for all the variables to look for potential reverse coded items. And if we came across any of the item that required to be reversed, we will do it, of course, by using the formula which will convert 1 to 5 and 2 to 4, and then 3 will remain 3 if it's a 5-point Likert scale. And then we will rerun the analysis. That may have a you can say impact on the on our significance values if there's any reverse coded item involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room? Yes. Okay, and there was a request, if you feel comfortable, you can leave your camera on during the Q&A.
Thank you. It's truly not a question, but an idea or remark that I felt from following those wonderful presentations that we did this morning. Studies are wonderful. They really pick up on so many aspects of different things here and there, and most of them based themselves on an existing survey or data. Quantitatively, that's good. I mean, I have no problem with that. But my concern, my idea for future research, that constructs like belonging, sense of belonging, forgiveness, gratitude, that has to do with making meaning within the individuals that we try to learn from. And I think in the future, maybe that'll be something more, I'm not saying that to be more valuable than what we have, but it will have more dimensional perspectives for us as readers of this research to make meaning of what those individuals are feeling about self-belonging or belong to a community, about the religiosity and how to practice their religion and project their religion on their behaviors, daily behavior. So I think using qualitative approach here may help us a lot in touching on many of those aspects that we try to learn more, because we need to go deep. We need to go deep more in learning about the Muslim thinking in a society that might not be supportive enough, like in the case in India nowadays, unfortunately. Or maybe we can also see how Muslim believers could fit in nicely in a cultural sense, in the global citizenship, in being part of the whole societies that they live in, than focusing on their belongingness to their own communities, which is good to start with, but we need to have this deep impact on our role as Muslims in the bigger society. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that actually segues nicely into a question that I had for Donia and the team for Tunisia. You mentioned a gender difference that you saw, and that is the kind of thing that really could only be fleshed out through like a deeper analysis, perhaps a qualitative analysis. But I wondered if you had any hypotheses or ideas about what might explain some of the gender differences that you saw in your study.
Thank you very much for this opportunity and for this question. In fact, we are, as you know, our work is still in progress, and of course, one of the findings is there is a gender difference, and we try to explain the gender difference, and we try to explain why the sense of belonging in Muslim countries is lower than that in non-Muslim countries. We are trying, in fact, we are in the phase of reading more about the literature on that. So, I don't really have an answer to that question, but sure, we'll try to explain this, because this is a very striking result: the gender and the religion.
Thank you. And a similar question for Zishan, because you identified also as a potential space for further analysis the gender differences in the different constructs. Do you have any thoughts about what might be like the next step?
Yes, definitely. So one of my research focuses, basically, I look into gender in terms of philanthropy. So because I did not want to overcomplicate the model, so I did not really want to talk a lot about the gender differences, but it definitely gave me an idea that maybe we can play around with more variables and maybe combine both studies. I mean, I'm not committing to that at this point that I will do it for sure, but definitely that is something that can be looked into. And maybe if whole study combining constructs from both surveys, both years, so we can come up with a study like on gender on its own.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat or in the Q&A that I think is open to anyone to answer, but I think it's thought-provoking. And one of the takeaways that Hamidullah Marazi found is that there seems to be a relationship between religion and psychology that maybe is something that people have known for a long time, but here we see clear evidence in a pretty wide sample. All the presentations touched on this in some way, but does anyone want to expand upon what they shared and the connection between religion and psychology?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to ask the question. As there are many scholars who have just tried to show that religion has origin in the psychological functions of a person. So when we generalize in this way that religion had a psychological function, and then it seems that it is divine origin is suspected in that way, because it may be the man-made construct in that way, and man has constructed religion. But as we believe in the Semitic religions, that religion has been given to us by God and prophets have brought it. So if we just reduce it to the psychological functions only, then it will lose its authenticity as a spiritual phenomenon. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I would just like to add, maybe it's not very, connected to the symposium, but that I personally believe that positive psychology is more associated with religiosity rather than the religion. And we should not be naive, and we should not be saying that, okay, that only Islam, like Muslims are very, very forgiving or very empathetic or very like whatever. So basically all organized religions and mainly Abrahamic religions, so they promote harmony. They preach you to be more empathetic. They preach you to be more forgiving. So a Muslim, I can be a Muslim, but at the same time, I can be the worst person on the planet, and I could be a Jew and can be a very empathetic, forgiving, and like nice person. So it's basically the level of public and private religiosity. Obviously, it's a different topic altogether. But how religious I am, or how like in a way that how I connect with the religion, that matters more than just the religion, I believe.
Thank you. Yeah, great reflection. Do you still have a question in the room? Yes. Okay, we have a question from the room.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I have a question because I can understand that to analyze the connection between religion and I see here productivity in terms of education here, because I don't remember who of you connected values, and I think you basically you research on education for kids. And so here, I know because it's to get the right and accurate result, it might take time because because these things happen continually. Didn't you think that it might be, this is what I'm thinking, to take Muslim refugees, like for example in the US, because they might be here for maybe 4 or 5 years and start studying the belonging, the religion values, so we can have really a good idea if it's real. We can see really a good data and empirical results and the situation of them, their education and values was really helpful for the improvement.
Yeah, so I think that relates to future research, and I know we have a pretty diverse panel in a lot of different fields. So maybe with the limited time left, if someone wants to share kind of how they connect this, very specific quantitative analysis of a survey to their other work. I know that we have Dusan's already talked about working in philanthropy. Suhara, you have a PhD in social work, maybe connecting the relevance of this sort of data set to more practical implications. That's, I know, an open question, but there's also only 5 minutes left, so you don't feel like you have to cover it totally. Okay, oh yes, we have a question in the room.
Yeah, no, in terms of gender differences that was reported from statistical analysis, I was thinking about whether there is really a gender difference in terms. I think I agree it's very hard to know unless you do a qualitative study to follow up on that, especially because with regards to social emotional skills, I understand this survey was conducted as a self-reported assessment, and there is a very little agreement globally around how you can the reliability of the self-reported surveys, and there is a social desirability in terms of differences whether women and men report differently in terms of how they assess their sense of belonging or those constructs. So I do think there should be some a little bit thinking around whether there is a really difference in the outcomes or whether the survey item itself was constructed in a way that men reported it that they have a more sense of belonging than women. So whether it's a certain measurement items itself or whether it's a difference of outcomes, I think that's a kind of something to think about. Yeah. And I wonder whether the researchers had thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if one of the panelists wants to take that, or Dr. Ilham, who organized the research.
Can I? Okay, so regarding the fact that there is a difference in sense of belonging between boys and girls, and for the sample on which we have worked. We can explain maybe that by the social and cultural factors that that impact on the sense of belonging. So, in fact, we have not really, as I said previously, we need to dig more in this literature, but one of the reasons is maybe the social and cultural factors that make females feel less sense of belonging than boys at school.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, I just want to make a note regarding the sense of belonging measure, because sense of belonging measure was used across all presentation as if it's the belonging to the community and belonging to the larger society. But in fact, sense of belonging measure we used was belonging to your school and how you feel at your school. And there might be, like Donia said, some cultural reasons why boys might feel more affiliated with their schools than their larger community. And the second point is regarding the forgiveness measure. In the 2018-2019, we used two measures of forgiveness. And one of them is the decisions that someone mentioned that there were gender differences on that. And in the 2019-2020, we had the same exact results regarding that same measure. Interestingly enough, that a previous study we've conducted in Arab countries indicated similar results regarding women being less forgiving than men. And it may say something about the measure itself, but it may also say something about the scenarios that we presented and whether they're more gender biased. And I think that's the point that you're bringing up, which I also agree with. And that's something to be, I guess, studied, analyzed, and investigated further for sure. One more point on religiosity, just because it's important and I have you all here. Religiosity was very problematic measure for us because we only ended up with 6 or 7 items, if I recall correctly, because every single country, or let's say most of the countries we researched, had issues with the religiosity measure. And we were not, definitely we're not like Zishan said, we're not measuring religion, we're measuring the extent of persons feeling close and connected to a specific religion. But it was problematic because people were afraid and worried about posing religiosity questions to their population. And so that's why it's not a perfect measure, it's not a complete measure, and also requires further investigation and development. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And it is now 10 o'clock, so we're going to break for half an hour and rejoin for the second panel of the day. But thank you to all of the presenters and a round of applause.